Welcome to the weekend, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to episode 25 of the Lazy Bums podcast. I'm Caleb Kalenda, and I'm joined by my co-host.
Abina Chalice.
Let's get into it. What do you want to start with?
Well, as I'm sure most of you know, the NBA came back yesterday, and we were very, very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something that we've been looking forward to ever since every sport in the world got canceled.
Right.
I mean, more so than others, really. I was excited for, soccer to come back, and I was excited for hockey to come back, but it's like, nothing really. I didn't miss anything like I missed the NBA.
I actually have a pretty interesting question. Just off the top of my head, do you think that the NBA is the best sports league right now in America? In terms of just like competition, the parity in the league, ownership, the way that the league manages its players and manages rule changes, things like that. Because in my opinion, I think it really is the NBA. I think they're better than the NFL.
They're certainly better than the NFL.
Yeah, Roger Goodell is.
I mean, the NFL is a joke. I mean, the MLB is also, facing problems. They're also kind of just falling off in terms of their quality over the past few years.
Right, and we saw that the MLB was trying to do their whole version of the bubble, and it already failed with the Miami Marlins, testing positive, however many of their players. And it seems like the NBA, is really setting the tone, I guess would be the word, for the standard for how to handle sports in these weird times.
Yeah. I've seen the proposal for hockey. I've glanced over it. I haven't really looked in depth to what they're really trying to do. But I've seen nothing but good things on, social media, on Reddit and Twitter. Everything seems to be pretty positive coming from hockey, and I'm excited to see what they can do. The NBA is good so far, but, you have antics going on and players leaving.
There's always drama in the NBA, and that's one of the best things. I mean, what other league would, a player like Lou Williams leave the bubble to go get some chicken wings?
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that kind of amazes me. And the fact that he missed, the fourth game in the LA rivalry series.
Right, because he
went to a strip club to get chicken wings.
Yeah, right. I mean, they must have some darn good chicken wings.
I guess so. Really, Lou Will.
It's it's like reality television being played out in the NBA bubble. It's pretty cool. We're watching the Celtics and Bucks game right now, and they just flashed this picture of some NBA players fishing, and that's just another example of, it's a little thing, might not go into a lot of people's minds, but giving NBA players other things to do besides basketball just makes the lives of these guys a lot easier, considering that they're committing however long of the year to just stay in an isolated area away from everyone,
Right. And, we've seen players opt out, and we've seen players go home to injury, and it's just kind of weird. It's weird to see a player that has been diagnosed, a week and a half ago, on the court. And like Russell Westbrook, I remember seeing him in the scrimmages, and I was just kind of like, what? Is he over COVID, or what's going on here?
I think that, even to check that, you have to, for the NBA, you have to test positive for a certain amount or test negative, for a certain amount of days before you can play. So they've just done a really good job laying all that stuff out and just trying as best as they can to adapt to this new situation, because at the end of the day, no one really knows how it's going to play out. Right. I mean, someone might unfortunately get COVID, and we could see things change, but the format that's running right now seems to be doing a pretty good job.
It's weird for everyone. It's weird to see the guys on TNT
with the plexiglass and
6
stuff,
feet apart, and the commentators with the divider in between them. It's a crazy time to be watching basketball, and I'm excited for what it holds, but I'm also kind of on the edge of my seat, you know.
Right.
And I'm a little nervous that we're gonna see a shutdown or something.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed that doesn't happen. Also, if you invested in plexiglass before all this, you're making some money. I didn't realize how much it was used, but after seeing the guys on TNT like being separated by them, I was like, wow, like, I mean, even right now on TV, they have like the commentators and stuff. They have plexiglass all along the their part of the court. So, I mean, you know, just another one of those protective measures that the NBA is taking and doing a really good job.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really impressed with the amount of safety that they've been instituting. Like all of the coaches and the players on the bench, they're mostly wearing masks, and when they're interviewing after games, you know, they're wearing masks. And I just think that's really, like, they're being really responsible. Mm-hmm. I mean, from at least an outsider's perspective, they're being really responsible. But, you know, I mean, you can't ever be too careful with things like this, you know.
And even with like the precautions that they're taking, they're still managing to, you know, do things like include the fans. As we can see, like they have screens with fans, and like it's not perfect. Obviously, it's not as good as having fans in a arena actually there cheering.
It's taken a little getting used to. I mean, watching on the sidelines.
Right, but it's so innovative. Like it is. I think it's a step in the right direction, and it's just what we need. Like at a time like this, and I just again enough cannot be said about the way that the NBA has handled their transition from the normal NBA season into this completely different format.
I saw Chris Bosh pop up on one.
Right, yeah. Chris Bosh was watching the Lakers game, I think it was.
Right,
he popped up on the screen, which is pretty funny.
It's pretty cool. I mean, nice to see that he's doing well.
Right, yeah. He had the whole, like, his blood clots and stuff like that. It was looking pretty bleak. But, yeah, hopefully Chris Bosh is doing well. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to basketball, the first matchup we saw was the 4-seeded Jazz currently facing off against the currently, I guess that's the 11th seed would be if it continued down, the Pelicans.
Yeah.
It was a really, really good game. Went down to the wire. Of course, we saw Zion Williamson again, and let me say, that man is huge.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen him, and I know most people have, like, seen him on TV before, and, like, we've gotten used to Zion, but maybe it's because I hadn't seen him in so long because of the whole restart, but I saw him on the TV, and he just looked like a huge blob. Like, no offense, Zion, but he looks so thick. Like, if he lost some weight, I think he would be incredible. I think he would be, like, a KG type of player.
Well, he's already incredible. I mean, you know, he's watching him last night. I mean, on the court, he played 15 minutes, I think, in the entire game, and he put up 14 points or something. I mean, he was really playing well when he was out on the court, catching lobs from Lonzo Ball. I mean, it was actually an impressive showing for the Pelicans, even though didn't they end up losing, or did they win?
No, the Pelicans lost. But back to what you were saying, Zion Williamson did have himself a really great game. He did only play 15 minutes, but he was definitely able to make his impact felt on the court. I mean, it was very obvious that the defense was keying into where he was in each possession.
Yeah,
things like that.
He freed up a lot of space for Brandon Ingram in the second quarter. I mean, Brandon Ingram really, I think they were showing a stat that was like this season he's averaging like 39 points against the Jazz.
Wow.
And I mean it's kind of ridiculous that the Jazz just can't stop him. And that's kind of what showed last night. But I mean, you know, maybe he's shaking off a little rust or something. He didn't score 39, but he still had a pretty good game.
Yeah, it seems like he kind of circles every time the Jazz are coming up in the schedule, and it's just like, I'm going to drop a 30 bomb on these guys.
I mean, he's really blossoming into a very, very good player. I'd call him a star.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially for the Pelicans.
And he's super young, too, so, you know, he has that appeal of being able to develop him into the player that you want. All that good stuff. Brandon Ingram himself played about 33 minutes and put up 23 points. You know, a lot of the offense was going through him, and he delivered mostly. It wasn't a super efficient game. His effective field goal was only 40%. It wasn't super efficient, but again, I think that's kind of something that we saw. Kind of a similar theme in both games was that a little bit of rust was definitely there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's understandable completely. I mean, these guys have been home for a while. Not all of them have been training that entire time. And I mean, I'm sure Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson have been training that entire time.
Yeah, but there's a difference between training and game speed, and clearly absolutely. We saw,
and they haven't been able to get out there and play against their peers in the NBA. Mm-hmm. I'm sure if they did, they would have been ostracized a little bit.
Right.
And so they haven't really been able to play competitively like that, for this entire time leading up to the bubble. I mean, you had the scrimmage games, and there was definitely a lot of rust in the scrimmage games.
Right, for sure. It's just obvious that, because of coronavirus and everything, some of these players don't even have basketball hoops in their homes. So they haven't been able to go to the gym and get those shots up consistently. So obviously we're going to see a little bit of rust, and maybe rust is something that could be used to describe Lonzo Ball's performance, because it didn't look good.
Yeah, Lonzo Ball, he's someone who I think a lot of people expected a lot from, and he's definitely a very talented player, and he's a great athlete, good defender. He just needs to work on the offense a little bit, and that definitely showed.
Yeah,
I mean maybe it's rust, but I mean, dude, he was missing open layups, and I'm not going to say anything bad about him, but it's a tough game.
Yeah, so the man played 27 and a half minutes and shot an impossible 2 for 13 for a field goal percentage of 15%.
Tough game.
If your starting point guard is shooting 15% from the field, your odds aren't looking too good. And for the Pelicans as a team trying to, get a playoff spot, they really need Lonzo Ball to perform better.
Yeah, I mean, Drew Holiday played well, and he's kind of the other guard in that.
Yeah, Holiday had 20, and he played some really good defense out there too.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Ingram, like I said, and I was impressed with Holiday. But the Pelicans, kind of overall, their performance was weak. Their defensive, they really couldn't defend the interior bucket. I mean, Jordan Clarkson really tore him up on the inside. And they really just couldn't seem to find a defensive rhythm.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at their advanced statistics, Zion Williamson was their best defensive player in terms of defensive rating. And, not saying Zion isn't a great defender, but he's not the best. I mean, I wouldn't expect him to be leading the team.
Yeah, there are a lot of other guys on that team that I'd look to before I look to Zion to be the defensive leader.
Right. But honestly, just looking at Zion's advanced statistics, he's really just a net positive for them. I mean, his offensive rating, he finished the game at 118. The team finished at 102. So he's playing significantly better. Not significantly better, but he's making the team play significantly better when he's on the court. And, his effective field goal percentage is 75%.
Wow, that's pretty good.
He's incredible. He's doing this at a very efficient clip, and he's doing it on very low minutes. I mean, 15 minutes is not much in terms of a full NBA game. And, I mean, he's really getting it done for them. Of course, it's easy to say small sample size, but I think with Zion, we can say that he just looking at his numbers, he's a very good player, and he's going to be.
What I saw from the Pelicans that game was that they really are exploring all of their pieces, and they have a lot. I mean, Josh Hart played a great game. Etuan Moore hit a couple threes. I mean, they have a lot of little pieces that have been really just I mean, in that game at least, they were performing. They were performing like they would in a playoff game. I mean, they were playing really well.
Exactly what you're saying. One of the positives for the Pelicans was their help off the bench. JJ Redick came in with 21 points. That last shot, in fact, was definitely a design play for Redick.
Right.
That it seemed Ingram kind of just canceled. He kind of went Kobe mode and just said, "Nah, you guys do that. I'm gonna shoot."
Yeah, I mean, I suppose he has the right to do that at this point.
Yeah,
he's kind of leading that team with Zion only playing 15 minutes.
But I mean, JJ Redick did have the hot hand. I mean,
Yeah.
he was shooting great, knocking down shots left and right. He had 21 points off the bench.
Yeah.
Again.
I mean, not saying that I was rooting for the playoffs. I mean, not saying I was rooting for the Pelicans, but I wanted to see JJ take that shot.
Yeah, me too. I totally agree. I think that he's just very seasoned at that, and like, they had set a couple back screens for him when he was coming off, and
Yeah,
like
it was a good play.
he's so good off the catch and shoot. Like, why not give him the ball? You know what I mean? You might not necessarily get any better of a look with Brandon Ingram.
Well, I mean, especially with the way the Jazz were playing him on defense. I mean, they wanted to eliminate that threat, and they did so pretty successfully in the fourth quarter. I mean, JJ really did step up, and he was making a lot of shots and brought the Pelicans within fighting distance, and it's a shame they couldn't get it done. But, I mean, overall, I'd say it was positive for the Pelicans.
Yeah, the Pelicans definitely have some bright spots and some things to look forward to if you're a Pelicans fan. On the Jazz side, it was a really good team effort from the team, or from the guys. Mitchell came in with 20, Mike Conley had 20, Gobert with 14 and 10. Like, he dominated.
Yeah.
The Jazz are a great team, though. We know this. The thing I want to talk about the Jazz, though, is a lot of people after this game, the Jazz, we've seen a lot of the same flaws with that team. They're good enough to maybe get the 4 seed in the West, and they look like contenders, but are they really contenders? In my opinion, no. They're not really going to test teams like the Clippers or the Lakers. They're not going to give them a run for their money, and we've been seeing this the last couple of years with the Jazz and this core.
That's the thing that was kind of interesting about this game. I mean, it was the Pelicans who are, like you said, they're pretty deep, and they're not really going to be expecting a run in the playoffs from this restart. They're not looking at a playoff spot, really.
Right?
And they're going up against, they're the 4 seed,
mm-hmm.
and they gave them a real run for their
money. They really did.
It came down to the wire, and I mean, it's just not looking good for the Jazz.
Yeah, I really question whether this core is necessarily the one to bring the Jazz a title. On the flip side, though, this is the most success the Jazz have had since Stockton, Malone, man. Like, it's been a while, and they're making the playoffs consistently. Like, that's kind of that that tough decision in basketball, whether you completely blow it up or you continue to be kind of a mediocre team and make playoffs every year, but not really challenge for a championship.
I mean, they have something to invest in Donovan Mitchell.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, obviously an incredible player, and he's established himself now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Gobert's still relatively young. Mike Conley's getting older.
He's getting old.
I mean, I think they have a solid squad. I think that defensively they're really, really solid. And Donovan Mitchell really gives them that spark. I mean, he is something else. He's a very, very talented player. He's going to be great, in the coming years.
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell finishing with an offensive rating of 126. So, I mean, the man is very good on offense. Again, though, for the Jazz as well, we saw Jordan Clarkson off the bench come up with 23 big points.
Yeah, I don't think that's something we're going to be seeing very often. But
yeah, probably not.
It was impressive.
I imagine. So I think that the easy thing for the Jazz to do, they got Jordan Clarkson on a relatively cheap contract, and so I think the easy thing to do would be to re-sign him and then just kind of, keep the pieces that they have and hopefully add a couple new ones. But I really do think that the move for the Jazz in the long term is to blow it up because, I mean, like, just looking at this team, like, Mike Conley is solid, but I don't know if he's that championship caliber point guard on your team anymore. He might have been in his earlier days with the Grizzlies, but now, I mean, you got Steph Curry, you got the Steph Currys of the world, the Damian Lillards, the Westbrooks, the list goes on.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously everyone kind of knows that the coming talent in the next coming draft is going to be some top tier talent, and so I mean, it would make sense for them to trade for picks, and it would make sense maybe to trade for a point guard or something that would help them offensively. But I don't think they really have anything that they want to give up. I mean, Mike Conley's not going to go for anything.
Exactly.
And, they might have to trade Gobert, and I don't think they want to trade Gobert.
And I think that right now you're probably looking at the prime time to trade or get rid of Donovan Mitchell in terms of value. I mean, he's still a very young player, and his future is just extremely bright. A couple years down the road, he might have already hit his peak, and he might not be necessarily as valuable. But right now, he's very young, and who knows how good he could be.
Yeah, but I don't know if I don't know if that's a gamble that the Jazz really want to take at this point, because I mean, he really could be the next big thing. He could be what they need to elevate themselves to the point where they could be contending for a championship and winning championships.
So do you think that Donovan Mitchell is the type of guy that you build the team around in the NBA, in today's NBA?
I think it's a little too early to tell.
Yeah.
He's a very young guy, and he has had some success in the playoffs. And
I mean, yeah, look at him against, what was it, that Thunder team with playoff P and
right.
Russell Westbrook, whatever. They destroyed them.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jazz completely just dominated them. And so even in his young career, we've seen real signs of leadership, and things like that are only going to get better as he gets older.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to see what happens with him in his career. I mean, I don't know if he's going to take the Jazz to that,
right? The
that
promised
caliber,
land.
But if he does get traded, I hope he has success. I hope he has success wherever he goes. He's a really likable player.
Moving on though, we had the other game, the Battle for Los Angeles, and that was a very good game
I mean,
too.
it's the one everyone's been looking forward to. Everyone wants to see LeBron come back. Everyone wants to see Kawhi come back, and it really delivered. I mean, it definitely was a good game. Came down to the wire. It was kind of tough to watch at some points. Caruso. It took a little while for him to get into the game. Kuzma took a little while for him to get in the game, and I mean, it was a good game though. I definitely respect the win, but it has. I've seen people on Twitter kind of say that you shouldn't look at this game and predict what's going to happen in the playoffs, but I think it definitely has something to say. This performance from both these teams, it says something about what's going to happen in the playoffs and kind of where they're going to be at.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I heard the commentators say a lot, how they didn't expect to see a lot of the stars playing big minutes because it's, for both of these teams, they've already secured a playoff spot. They're the top two teams in the conference. That's basically settled at this point.
Yeah.
I think you would agree with
It's kind of
that.
undisputed that they're the two best.
Right. So most people saw this as kind of just an exhibition game, to get back into the flow of things before the playoffs start. But, we saw heavy minutes from all of the starters. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and LeBron James all playing 30-plus minutes. Anthony Davis as well.
Davis, yeah.
All the stars played 30-plus minutes, and they were really going for the win out there. I mean, they were working their tails off. I've never seen LeBron James play that kind of defense in so long.
Yeah, I mean, that was really impressive. He really took it all the way with his defense, and for good reason. He was guarding Paul George and Kawhi Leonard,
right.
I mean, off and on, and it must have been a game that they wanted to come back and win. I mean, they really wanted that win. Anthony Davis was pulling up from three multiple times, and he hit back-to-back threes at one point, and that's something that, man, I did not expect to see that in the first game, and he really went for it, and he delivered. I mean,
It's so, how unreal is it to see those 7-footers step back there and shoot threes with confidence off the dribble? It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, imagine an NBA coach seeing that just 10 years ago. Yeah. I mean, it would have been unheard of, you know what I mean? And now it's a common thing for these 7-footers to
see it a lot from Anthony Davis.
Right.
And, other offensive centers, but Anthony Davis really, I mean, it's something to watch when he's moving. When he brings the ball up the floor and he, just kind of commands whoever's on him. You can't really guard him. You're not supposed to guard him out there.
Exactly.
But you have to, and you really can't.
So Anthony Davis finished with a nice 34 points and 8 rebounds, and LeBron with the near triple-double, 16, 7 assists, and 11 rebounds. So, really good games from those guys, especially in their first game back. And we were happy to see, just the stars back on the center stage.
Yeah, and there was a couple. I mean, there was a few other for the Lakers. There were a few other highlights in that game. I mean, Kuzma had a great game. More towards the end.
Man, Dion Waiters had himself a game towards the end too. Really just brilliant to see Dion Waiters out there again, because he was really struggling for a little bit in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive that he's been able to come back and especially in this time, I mean, come back and play with the Lakers.
And give him really solid minutes, man. He had, let's see, Dion Waiters had 11 off the bench, plus 17, plus minus. I mean, he was good for them.
Yeah, very, very, I mean, it is honestly a surprise, but it's good to see. It's great to see Dion Waiters back and playing like he used to play, giving buckets.
Right. It's just exciting whenever he's doing well.
Yeah.
But again, Kuzma had a great game towards the end, and most importantly, I think we saw LeBron really lock in on defense. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from the game for me, was just that, especially that last possession. So just looking at that last possession, Paul George, up until that point, he was heating up. Like, he hit those 2 back-to-back threes that were huge momentum shifts for the Clippers. I mean, they really needed it. Paul George finished with 30 points. But besides that, he had hit these 2 huge threes, and the Clippers had the ball. And we just saw LeBron James play some great defense on Paul George and on Kawhi Leonard. It was really great to see.
Yeah, PG ended up taking the last shot, and LeBron definitely had a huge impact on the fact that it didn't go in. And I think really Kawhi wanted the shot to tie the game.
So the pass went into Kawhi, and it looked like he was backing down LeBron at the top of the free throw line.
Yeah.
And he passed it out to to George, and then LeBron ended up switching on Paul and, playing good defense to wind the clock out. But we just saw LeBron, obviously he's a beast on the offensive end, and we see that all the time. He puts up these crazy numbers, but to really see him put an effort on defense it's been a huge criticism against him since he's joined the Lakers, and we really saw him show out last night, and it's great to see.
Yeah, I mean, obviously on the offensive end, he hit the game winner, and on the defensive end, he shut the game down. And he took it into his hands, and it was cool to see. But something that I saw from the Clippers side towards the end there was missed free throws. I mean, Kawhi missed 2, and I think Paul George also missed 2 towards the end.
And those changed the game right there.
Yeah, huge free throws, clutch free throws, and they both missed. And you could attribute that to Russ, but, I mean...
They're free throws, guys. You guys are NBA players. Come on, make them. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. On the bright side for the Clippers, game doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things. These guys, at least I think so, and I'm pretty sure you also think that this is the Western Conference Finals matchup that we're going to see this year. So it'll just be really interesting. So one thing you'll also have to remember is that Lou Will wasn't playing in this game for the Clippers, and he's a really big piece for them coming off the bench and, even starting sometimes. He's a huge scorer for them and just gets their offense going.
Yeah, Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell weren't playing for the Clippers, and obviously Avery Bradley and Rajon Rondo are not playing for the Lakers. Mm-hmm. So, those are, smaller pieces, but those are definitely, Lou Will is a big piece. Montrezl Harrell is definitely a big piece.
Absolutely. Both of those 2 guys are huge for that team.
Avery Bradley is a pretty big piece for the Lakers, and Rajon Rondo maybe not so much. But it's still pretty significant losses for both teams. And so that's, I think, why people are maybe having the reaction of, you can't really judge this game. But, most of those guys are going to be gone for pretty much this entire time.
You're right.
So, you gotta just judge it with what you have, and I think that this really shows that the Lakers might be a little weak against the Clippers, especially once they get Lou Will back. And I don't know about Montrez. I don't know what's up with him.
Yeah, Lou Williams would definitely add another dynamic element that they kind of miss with guys like Reggie Jackson out there. He's obviously not as dynamic as Lou Williams. That's obvious. Yeah. But you're right. It will be interesting to see how these teams fare in the playoffs with a little bit more, obviously more implications, but a little bit of a different team. So, obviously that's something that we're really looking forward to, seeing those 2 teams face off in the conference finals.
Yeah, a bunch of really great games coming up this week. I'm really excited tonight to watch the Mavs and the Rockets face off.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to see
Luka Doncic about a hoop.
Yeah, James Harden, and it's going to be a great game, and it's going to be a great season. And that being said, we're going to wrap up here.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to check us out on Anchor, on Patreon, and our new website that's just gone up. There are many ways to donate. Things like Patreon come with exclusive content from me and Caleb, and a lot of exciting stuff in there for you guys. Also on Anchor, you can donate through there. And it's just a very exciting time, and we hope you guys continue to tune in. And until next time.
Thank you, guys.